Hello everyone and welcome back to our tutorial series. Today in tutorial number 31, we're diving into an incredibly practical and frequently requested topic, how to programmatically populate web forms using Excel VBA. After exploring web scraping in our last session, we'll now shift our focus and see how VBA can interactively input data into web fields. We'll cover everything from simple text fields to checkboxes, radio buttons, and even drop-down lists. So grab a cup of coffee, open up Excel, and let's get started. In this video, we will be working with a mock website I've set up. This is to ensure a controlled environment where we can focus solely on the skills without external interferences or unexpected changes that real-world websites might bring. It consists of a basic form with elements that you'd commonly encounter: fields for your name and surname, checkboxes for communication preferences, radio buttons for gender selection, and a drop-down menu for country choice. As we progress through the tutorial, I'll demonstrate how to target each of these elements using Excel VBA and fill them out automatically. Alright, with that understanding in place, let's transition to Excel. I'm going to open up Module 1 in the VBA editor and walk you through the script I've prepared for this video. This code is specifically crafted to interact with our mock website's form elements, and as we dissect it, you'll get a clearer picture of how each line of VBA corresponds to an action on the web form. Before we start diving into the code, a crucial step not to forget is setting up our references. For the code to interact with Internet Explorer, we need to ensure we've enabled the necessary references. Go to Tools to References in the VBA editor and make sure Microsoft Internet Controls and Microsoft HTML Object Library are both checked. These will allow our VBA code to interface smoothly with web elements. Now onto the code itself. First, we declare our Internet Explorer object with dim.ie as object and our document object with dim.doc as object. This sets the stage for our automation script. Next, we initialize our IE object using the following line. This line essentially launches a new instance of Internet Explorer which we'll control using VBA. The line IE.visible equals true ensures that we can see this browser window as our macro runs, which is great for debugging and understanding what's happening. Next, we instruct our IE object to open our mock website, and the subsequent line ensures that our VBA script waits until the website is fully loaded before proceeding. Once loaded, we set our doc object to the document of our Internet Explorer instance. This allows us to directly interact with the HTML elements on the page. From here on, each line of code corresponds to an interaction with the form. Now, let's concentrate on the next line. To effectively demonstrate how this line operates, I'm going to place a breakpoint on it in our VBA editor. By setting this breakpoint, when I run our script, the code execution will stop right before this line, allowing us to inspect and verify its actions in real time. With our website now open, let's take a moment to understand how our VBA code interacts with it. To do that, we're going to inspect the HTML structure of the first name input box. Right-click on the input box in the browser and choose Inspect Element. This action will reveal the underlying HTML code. Here you can spot an identifier, ID equals first name. This unique ID allows our VBA script to target this specific field directly. Web forms typically assign unique IDs to each of their elements. This is a common practice in web development to ensure that each element, whether it's an input box, a checkbox, or a radio button, can be distinctly recognized and manipulated. These IDs provide a reliable way to access and interact with specific parts of a web page. In the realm of VBA and web automation, we leverage these unique IDs to pinpoint the exact elements we need to control. For example, if a form has multiple input boxes for different pieces of information, each box would generally have its own distinct ID. Now back in our VBA code, we see this principle in action. The line of code we're examining is a straightforward illustration of this concept. The getElementById method is crucial here. It tells VBA to look through the HTML of the web page and find an element with the ID of first name. Once found, we set its value to John. By assigning the value this way, we're mimicking the action of manually entering the name John into the first name field of our form. Let's run this line of code now. As you can see, the first name field on our form is now filled with John. This effectiveness and precision in targeting specific elements make VBA a powerful tool for automating interactions with web forms. Our next line of code, much like the previous one, focuses on populating the surname field on our mock website. Let's first navigate back to our mock website and inspect the element corresponding to the surname field. Right-click on the surname input box and select Inspect Element. Within the highlighted section of the HTML, you'll see something similar to ID equals surname. As discussed earlier, this unique ID allows our VBA script to target this specific input field, distinguishing it from other elements on the page. Now back to our VBA environment. The getElementById surname method locates the input box associated with the surname field. The .value equals doe portion of the code sets the value for this input box to doe, simulating the action of a user manually typing it in. Let's run this particular line and observe the result. And there you have it. The surname field on our mock website now reads doe. This process of using unique IDs to identify and interact with web form elements will be a recurring theme as we delve further into the code. Now, for those of you who might be new or haven't followed our previous tutorials, you might be wondering how to pull data directly from Excel into the VBA script. Instead of hard-coding values like John, we can automate the process to pull data directly from our worksheet. To do this, simply change John to this, and the code will pull the name from the Excel cell and fill it into the web form. Now that we have successfully entered the name details, our next two lines are about setting preferences for communication. Starting with the first line, let's go back to our mock website and inspect the email checkbox. When we right-click on the checkbox and select Inspect Element, we'll see its corresponding HTML code. In this code, we look for the ID equals email check. Once again, we're leaning on the unique ID of an element to guide our VBA script. In our VBA code, getElementById email check targets the email checkbox based on its unique ID. Following this, the .checked equals true portion instructs VBA to check or tick this box, effectively turning it on. The second code line follows the same logic but targets the phone checkbox. Let's execute these two lines now. Great! As you can observe on the mock website, both the email and phone checkboxes are now selected. By manipulating the .checked property of these elements, we can easily control whether checkboxes are on or off. Next up is a slightly different kind of element, the radio button for gender selection. If we inspect the HTML source of our mock website, we'll notice an element with the ID male. This corresponds to the radio button for the male gender option. Radio buttons in web forms are used when you have a list of two or more options and the user is allowed to select only one. They typically come with a property called checked, which can be either true, selected, or false, not selected. In our VBA script, by setting .checked equals true for the element with the ID male, we are programmatically selecting the male option on the form. Let's execute this line now. As you can see, the male radio button on the form is now selected, validating the efficiency of our code in interacting with such elements. Now let's move on to the drop-down menu for selecting a country. Drop-down menus, or select elements as they're technically called in HTML, offer multiple options to the user in a compact space. Users can click on the drop-down to expand it and then select one of the available choices. Each of the options in a drop-down has a unique value. On our mock web form, the option for Canada has the value Canada. If you inspect the element, you'll spot a select element with the ID country. Within this select element, you'll find multiple option elements, and one of them will have the value Canada. Back to our VBA script. This line specifically targets the select element with the ID country and sets its value to Canada. This action simulates a user selecting Canada from the drop-down menu on the form. Let's run this line and observe. As expected, Canada is now selected in the drop-down on the mock website. It's fascinating how we can control web form elements so seamlessly using Excel VBA. With the last interaction executed successfully, our mock web form now reflects all the changes we've programmed it to. The name and surname fields are populated, communication preferences checked, the male-gender option selected, and Canada chosen from the drop-down list. This simple yet powerful VBA script showcases how efficiently we can automate web form submissions without manual input. Before moving on, it's important to remember to close the browser window and free up resources. We achieve this with the next 2 lines of our code. Now, if you're wondering how to click on buttons using Excel VBA, don't worry, that's a topic of our next tutorial. But for now, take a moment to appreciate the power of automation you've just unlocked. By mastering this skill, not only can you speed up repetitive tasks, but you can also minimize human errors associated with manual form submissions. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials. Feel free to drop your questions or thoughts in the comments section below. Happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video.